are here on the sidelines of BFAP's 2026 baseline launch. Now, the baseline is an incredible report that contains a lot of data analysis about what's been happening and what is likely to happen in the future of agriculture. I'm very fortunate. Today I'm joined by Khani and by Gerhard from BFAP. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
And we are going to talk about transformation, which is a critical issue. Gerhard, I'm going to start with you. Transformation has definitely been a policy priority across the agriculture sector for a number of years, but that doesn't necessarily equate automatically to actual meaningful, sustainable transformation taking place on the ground level. So give us a sense of where we are at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, Anli. I think that's probably one of the most important starting points is sustainability. So starting with the why. Why do we need transformation, A? And B, if we get to transformation in the sector, is it sustainable? And that's, you've summarized what we're at in BFAP, trying to quantify that. And I use the word trying because it is a very, very difficult topic. Data-wise, really unpacking the various aspects of transformation and of the informal sector, the sector that is currently not measured, not well understood. And part of that is our job, is to unpack that and to measure that into a meaningful positioning statement, I think is a very difficult task. And we, in collaboration with many other role players, whether it be government, whether it be other research institutes, are actively working in that. But the current state is actually unquantified. It is still not yet at a point when we can say we're at meaningful, sustainable transformation, yet there are major success stories of inclusive growth, of getting more participation of whether it be women in agriculture, whether it be black participants, whether it be smaller production units growing to a more medium or large scale enterprise. But still we are not at a point when we can fully quantify that as of yet, unfortunately.
Khani, coming to you, perhaps you can give us some insights into exactly why evaluation and monitoring, as Gerhard has mentioned, is so critical to determining success. And perhaps if you can help us identify some of those gaps, why aren't we able to quantify success at this stage?
Thanks for that question. And I think it boils down to exactly what Gerhard mentioned now, that we are not able to quantify where we are in transformation. And the simple answer is we cannot improve what we cannot measure. So it is difficult for us now to quantify where we are in transformation because we have not been measuring, we have not been evaluating the work that is done on the ground. And the reality is work is being done on the ground, but then the fact that we are not measuring it, we are not evaluating, quantifying it, it then makes it difficult to improve and inform decision making. So I would say that the difficulty of not monitoring and evaluating is contributing to the gaps that we see in transformation.
So maybe it's an unfair question because this transformation isn't implemented by BFAP. You're trying to quantify it and put that into context with the rest of the layering of information that you unpack as part of BFAP's work that you do. But surely if targets have been set as part of the National Development Plan, as part of the Agricultural and Agro-Processing Master Plan, to see whether those targets are being met consistently, these things should have been monitored, evaluated. Data should have been captured on various layers. Do we simply not have the infrastructure, the capacity, the manpower to do that effectively on a large scale? Or where are the big pitfalls?
I could maybe mention, Khani, I think there are actually many organizations measuring, and I think many companies measuring, and certain parts of government and or provincial departments measuring. But ultimately, data without a purpose is just data. And I think that's part of the problem, right? Is you asked the question, or you mentioned sustainable transformation, and I think that's where, for us, that strategy actually needs to tie in. So if we know what type of data to collect, tying that into a measurement of economic sustainability, because sustainability can be various things. It can be environmental sustainability, but economic sustainability, I think the gap is starting off with the why. Why do you need to measure? And then having that data that has a very specific purpose, and then looking at, but now we're actually getting to a sustainable model of transformation. So I think it's not that we don't know anything as a sector. In fact, I think as a sector, agriculture is measuring much more than other sectors, you know, whether it be, again, environment or water affairs or mining even. I think there's huge success stories, and I think part of programs like maybe this one and others are you know, explaining and showcasing it, but at scale, and really to hit the targets that were set out by those various development plans. I think that's part of, you know, a very concerted effort required by industry.
So transformation is not a once-off. It's not we set a target in 1994 or 2000 or 2005 and then we run from there. It's a constant tweaking, an evaluation of what is working and what isn't working, and then actually adjusting to make sure that we rework programs, whether it be land distribution programs, input support for new upcoming farmers, small business support for agribusinesses, so that they are actually meaningful and sustainable into the future. And part of tweaking, that ongoing reworking of programs, means that we need to look at those data and use the data to identify what it is that's working and what isn't working. Through the work that you've done, and I mean, you have a whole section in your baseline report in 2026 on transformation. What are some of the highlights of the things that you've identified that need a bit of a massage to have a bigger impact?
Okay, I think the first one that comes to mind is that in transformation, there is no one size fits all. We have different farmers that we're working with, and if you look at those different farmers, whether it is in urban areas, peri-urban, or communal areas, they are in need of different support systems. So when our approach to transformation needs to be a bit more targeted, it cannot be one size fits all. For example, if we look at grant funding and the provision of that, one might think that grant funding should be provided by government, but that's not necessarily true, because even industry or private sector, they would like to see farmers, for example, small-scale farmers who need help with high capital expenditure. They need help with, they can use grant funding. Also, some organizations have socio-economic objectives, and they would like to see socio-economic impact in rural areas, such as increased food security or reduced rural poverty. So then in formulating our transformation initiatives, I think just looking at the type of farmer that we are working with and the kind of impact we would like to have, that can have a significant impact on, or significant effect on the impact that we have eventually.
Gerhard, in closing, the data, the stats, the numbers aren't just there to show us if we are hitting targets, but they're also there to show us what agricultural growth could look like once we know we're getting it right. Have you done some of that modelling?
Yeah, absolutely, Anli. I think that's kind of case in point, right? If the analogy of a rising tide rises all boats, without economic growth as a country, and without the agriculture sector really investing in some of these big levers, what we already see is the impact back down to the smallest of producers. You know, whether you have a 1,000 rand turnover small producer, whether it's 1 million rand or 10 million or 1 billion, that impact is felt right through the value chain. And we've quantified, and today we'll talk about it, exactly how much the needle is shifting. As an example, we're seeing, where it used to be at a 0.5 hectare type production system at the smallholder level, it's moved up into a 4 hectare production system. So in other words, size and the economy of scale also playing out at that producer level. But the amount, in other words, the units, that has grown. So it just goes to show that the informal economy, it needs the stimulus from, call it, commercial agriculture, and the same interventions that commercial agriculture needs, whether it be export growth or whether it be infrastructure investment on ports and harbors, that growth trickles right down to the smallest of producers. So yes, we do see the needle moving, and I think that's on a positive note. What we get right, again at the commercial sized level, trickles through to the rest of the value chain, and that's where food security, I think, is many times undervalued and I think unquantified, is the value of informal small production systems for localized food security, where access to food, affordability, those are the big levers that we need to get right.
So BFAP's baseline this year in 2026 is looking ahead to 2050. So if you're really interested in seeing and understanding the impact of transformation and seeing some of the modeling of what that impact could be in the next 20 years, have a look at BFAP's baseline report for 2026, and you can find that on the BFAP website. That's www.bfap.co.za. Thanks so much for watching, and thank you, Khani and Gerhard.
Thank you, Annelie.